Good evening, everyone. I'm really glad we have this topic because there's nobody who needs it more than me. And I thought I would start. One of the things I remember that there were a lot of good quotes about procrastination, and I'm going to I'm not going to give you, there's pages and pages. I'm not going to give you all of them. Mark Twain, and he's not the only one who said almost exactly the same thing. So I'm not sure where this originated from. But Mark Twain said, never put off till tomorrow what may be done the day after tomorrow just as well. Okay. And Bill Watterson, I don't know who he is, but he said, and there's a couple of quotes here from him, you just can't turn on creativity for like a faucet. You have to be in the right mood. What mood is that? Last minute panic. I mean, I think we've all felt that at times, last minute panic. Benjamin Franklin said, you may delay, but time will not. And Pablo Picasso, I thought this one was a little odd, but only put off to tomorrow what you are willing to die having left undone. I don't really go around thinking in those terms, but okay. And Ellen DeGeneres said, procrastinate now, don't put it off. And Karen Lamb, I don't know who she is either. A year from now, you may wish you had started today. Abraham Lincoln said, see what? I mean, there's like only a person on earth who hasn't procrastinated. Abraham Lincoln said, you cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today. And Rita Mae Brown said, if it wasn't for the last minute, nothing would get done. And I'm like your prime example of that. Okay, St. Augustine. I was really surprised to find something from St. Augustine in these quotes, but he said, God has promised forgiveness to your repentance, but he has not promised tomorrow for your procrastination. Or promise tomorrow to your procrastination. So forgiveness to your repentance, but not tomorrow to procrastination. And Bill Watterson again said, a day can really slip by when you're avoiding what you're supposed to do. Okay, I think most of us know that too. This was interesting. I says the thing all writers do best is to find ways of avoiding writing. And that was one of the things I came up with in looking through some of these things online, is that writers, and you can understand, I guess, if it's just you and your typewriter or your computer or whatever, I can imagine that's, it's really hard to stick with it and do it. But like writers apparently have a real thing about procrastination. Janet Daly said, someday is not a day of the week. I really like that one. So you're going to do it someday? Not a day of the week. Gloria Pitzer said, procrastination is my sin. It brings me naught but sorrow. I know that I should stop it. In fact, I will tomorrow. Stephen King said, the scholar's greatest weakness, calling procrastination research. And this one I like too, Judy Tenuta. I don't know if any of you know who she is. I have no idea. My mother always told me I wouldn't amount to anything because I procrastinate. I said, just wait. And Don Marquis said, procrastination is the art of keeping up with yesterday. Okay, so there's a lot of amusing things, but most of us don't find it so amusing when you kicking yourself for not having done something, like last week or yesterday or whenever. Anyway, so what is procrastination? Procrastination is ignoring the unpleasant, but more important, like a more important task in favor of one that is more enjoyable or easier. And I think, all of us know that. Habitually concentrating on low priority tasks. So doing stuff, just not doing the right stuff, the important stuff that you need to do. And waiting for ideal circumstances to be, you'll begin when, the house is clean, or anything else that you can think of that needs to happen before you could, possibly be ready to do this. Okay, so what is a procrastination? responding to an emergency instead of working. If there really is a true emergency, that's not going to be procrastination that you put this off. Your house is burning down. You really probably shouldn't sit there and, finish that report. Reprioritizing when something else becomes important, because there are times when you're working on something, it's something you planned, you want to do it, and then all of a sudden something else drops in your lap, which is really does take, need to be addressed, right away. So, okay. What happens when we procrastinate? Most of us feel terrible. We feel terrible about ourselves. We feel guilty or ashamed. We may begin to feel that we can't do whatever it is. Like, in other words, we're completely incapable of doing what it is we had thought we were going to get done. And we don't achieve the goals we set for ourselves. Most of us have some kinds of goals, even if it's only, like getting packed up for vacation the day before we actually leave, or or something like that. But we do feel bad if we said we were going to do this, we planned to do it, and it just didn't happen. So so those are some of the things that we're that we have. I'd like people to share, like, what kinds of things are you concerned about? What kind of things do you procrastinate on? Nobody's going to put themselves out there.
Oh, well, decluttering, that's my biggest.
We do seem to talk about that a lot here. Okay. Let me just write down. I'm trying to keep track of some of these names here as they come up. Okay. Yeah. The thing is that because it's a hard thing to do, decluttering, and we've gone over that, here in this. I don't have to tell anybody here on this in this forum that that can be tough. A lot of times because we have attachments to certain things for certain reasons, even though we don't use something and it's, we don't need it, but it's still sometimes hard to get rid of stuff. I procrastinate. I really enjoy doing these sessions, but I set a topic usually the month before, and do I get around to doing it right away? Not so soon, and even if I do some research and everything else, it's not like I haven't put together any notes that I need until, pretty much, the last minute. So, this one I actually was fairly ready. Amazingly, probably because it was procrastination. I kept saying to myself, okay, am I doing any of these things that they should be doing? Any of these tips that I'm going to lay on people? But what do you think? We're going to talk about why you're procrastinating, okay? Because there are a lot of different, there are different reasons, but I guess, what do you think gets in the way for you? What are you doing instead of doing what you need to do? Anybody want to share? Oh,
I think I'm doing what you said before, which is low priority tasks.
mhm,
Like I'm moving paper around or doing stuff, and it
cleaning out that file cabinet, right?
yeah, right. I mean, it happens every year during tax time, right? I say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get it to the accountant March 1st so that I'm not doing it the last minute and it's an emergency. And it just doesn't happen because there's no pressure,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. That's a good question. What am I doing instead? Having a good time?
Yeah. Okay. Well, here are some of the reasons, and some of them I would not have actually come up with on my own. Here are some of the reasons that people procrastinate. Okay, and we will get to what you do instead. But do you feel failure? Okay, because a lot of people don't want to start because they're afraid they won't be successful at something. So it's really kind of a fear factor. Now, a lot of the tasks we do aren't so terrifically challenging that we don't think we can do them. But for some people, and depending on the task, that it could be fear. It could be because it's boring. If you're a person who likes to be out and about and all, like paperwork, which we all have to do paperwork. For some of us, it's not a big problem. For others, it's that's the last thing in the world that they want to do. So that becomes an issue. Is it too difficult? sometimes we have something set that to do, and it's probably something we need to get done. But we know it's difficult. And it may be even too difficult for us. It might be something that you need help for. You might have to engage somebody else to help you or whatever. Or there might be ways that you can make it easier, by doing it across a couple of days or something like that. It depends on the task. And it's something that you have to think about. Is there a way I could make this easier? Is there somebody who could help me with this? Is that possible? One of the most important things is like prioritizing, because we all have a lot of stuff that we have to do. And we're using a lot of low priority tasks to procrastinate on the big priority task that just seems, like too much to do. But sometimes we lack the organizational skills to really think about prioritizing and actually putting things in order that we can get them done. One of the things that I've heard that might work is if you have a list of tasks, take the first two, and which one is more important, which one needs to be done. Okay, you put that one, even if you have them on cards, like a card here and a card there, and then you take the next two, which is the most important, and then you keep doing that. Then you have your cards sorted, and you take that card of like more important ones and you sort them the same way, so that you finally come up with the one card and it's like, oh God, I don't want to do that. but that is your most important thing to do. So sometimes it's just that, like, how am I going to decide, what's the most important? And then sometimes it's perfectionism, which sounds kind of silly, because if you're a perfectionist, oh, you do everything perfectly. No, but you worry about doing things perfectly. So it's like, what if I slip up, or what if I can't handle this part of it, or what if, what if, and that perfectionism gets in the way of doing anything. And it's setting yourself up for failure. And then there's something that I think a lot of us might find hard to think about, but fear of success. Because especially in a work situation, and a lot of us are not working anymore, but especially in a work situation, if you're successful with something, then people are really inclined to put more on your plate. You're expected to do more. You're expected to, step up there, because, hey, look, you did this. Now you could probably do this. So sometimes, and that might not even work, like consciously, but there might be a something lurking in the background there, that if you can handle this, you could handle a lot of things, and maybe they'll, start shoveling them your way. That's something they have to think about. So there's a lot of reasons that, we might procrastinate. But you're here mostly to find out what to do about it, I would think. Before we start, I'm curious to know if anybody out there has something that they've used to manage their procrastination, and if you could share it with us before I get started on my own list of stuff. Nobody is like getting over that barrier.
Well, sometimes, I shouldn't say this like really loud in case like my boss Z is on the line, but sometimes if I lower my expectations a little bit, it makes it easier for me to jump into something that maybe I'm not, sure that I totally know what to do, or something that I feel new at. Sometimes I have to kind of say to myself that, possibly I'm going to be more critical of myself than other people, because we're usually all our own worst critic. So sometimes I think, maybe it doesn't have to be perfect the first time out, or, if you try, to do the best that you can, even if it's not perfect, that kind of takes some of the anxiety away, so that at least you can, open the door and walk into the task.
Okay, well, it's interesting because that's you hit on what I was going to interrupt you to say, which was like
Oh.
what we were talking about was perfectionism. You know, that you don't, if you're afraid you're not going to, like really, nail this. That's really like kind of perfectionism coming in, and you said that yourself, and that's what it could be. The thing is, and sometimes the way to attack that is to say, that it's a learning experience. You're learning,
Right.
because we don't expect a student to do, first time out of the box, do something, perfectly correct or whatever, So, and whatever you've done, you've moved the bar like a little, you've moved the bar a little. So, it doesn't necessarily, of course, we will want it to be perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect, and we have to recognize that. So,
Right,
very
and
good.
something being imperfect is better than it not being done at all.
Yeah, Beverly, right.
I was gonna say that sometimes I imagine how I'm gonna feel afterwards,
Mhm.
after I get it done.
Yeah.
And then I'll set up some kind of a reward,
Oh,
not a
you're
big.
beating me to my points here, Beverly. Yeah, but those are both two strategies. And I think even more important even than the reward, and it could be like, a piece of cake, or, a lunch with a friend, or, I gravitate to food, right? Or I'll go out for a walk in the sunshine or something. If I get this done, then I can take a break and walk. But yeah, like the feeling though is almost more important um than the reward. And I think that it's important to actually stop, and we don't always do this, but to stop and say, hey, I got that done. That was my top priority for the day, and it's done. I took care of it. And now if I have time, I could hit some of these other things that are on this long list of stuff I've got to do.
The
But
thing is,
yeah.
I was gonna say, Pat, that maybe you can talk later about, it gets harder when it's a larger task that goes over multiple days.
Uh-huh.
Because if you imagine how you're gonna feel when it's done at the end of the day and you're not done, then it backfires a little bit.
Yeah, but you know what? I think then, and I think this is true for a lot of things. Sometimes what we're talking about are tasks, which are, I've got to get that thing to the insurance company, or I've got to, get your stuff to the accountant, or that sort of thing. Sometimes they're bigger projects, and it's kind of like, okay, break it down, like that you need to get make it into chunks, like this part of the job, that part of the job, another part, and each of them is like a goal. So, you might say that you think that maybe you could do one or two parts during a day. So if you get even one part done, especially if it's like the most important part, and that's another thing. The biggest thing is kind of prioritizing. So you're knocking off the important parts of things, but so that if you get it done, hey, you can stop and say, "Yay for me! I did it. I accomplished this much of this thing, and now there's only like three more parts, but they're not as important. I did the toughest thing first, or the most important thing first. So." Um, so yeah, if it's a really big job, you don't have to feel like, okay, I got to set a whole day necessarily aside to do this. If it's due in a week or whatever, you can take, you can do a certain, like 3 days, you can take, especially if it's something really onerous that you really don't want to do. Sometimes it does help to to break it into sections. And it's hard to even give an example, because a lot of things that we do are very different, but for instance, if you were trying to you want to clean out every closet in the house or something, one at a time, like, and maybe not even the whole closet. I mean, depending on what that closet look like, if that's the one like Fibber McGee's closet, you might want to say, I'll just do the top shelf, or I'll just do the floor today. And yes, your goal is to do the closet, but you've accomplished your goal. You didn't put it off, because it's so much easier to put off. Like if you feel you have to do the whole thing, the whole whatever it is, at one time, it's really much easier to put it off. Oh, I just don't have the time. I don't have 5 hours to do this, so I'll just skip it for today. Instead of saying, okay, I'll take one shelf and I'll get that done. So that's something that, and now not everything lends itself. I mean, there are probably some things that, I know there are things where, you can't spread like painting a room over, a week. If you kind of have to like live with it. I mean, you might be able to, spread it over a couple of days by moving furniture or, cleaning the dust bunnies and, getting the paint in it. But it's, you can't put everything off. You still have to kind of take most of, do it most in one day.
So here's a closet question for you, Pat. Okay. So you have two closets, right? One is easier and one is, that's okay. One is easier and one is really hard. So there's two schools of thought. One is maybe start with the easier one and get a sense of accomplishment and build momentum. And then the other one is, well, do the thing that's hardest.
Right. And then the other thing will be a snap.
Yeah. Like where do you stand on that?
I think that's a really personal thing, because I think people respond to things differently, and you have to kind of like know yourself, or, feel like one of the things that people do warn about is using easier tasks to postpone harder tasks. So the thing is, if you feel like if you feel that's what's happening, you might want to sit yourself down and have a conversation, but I don't think it really matters. It's whatever, because different individuals are different, and it'll depend on what you think will work for you. And you don't always know, but you might learn something about that you could use next time,
That's a really good point, Pat, about, maybe I'm kidding myself.
No, but the thing is, like, sometimes, like if you take the easier closet and do it, and you're like, wow, this looks great. It does give you kind of like, it gets your momentum going. But like I said, for some people, and then, like you tackle the bigger one and you say, this is going to look just as good, but it's going to take me longer. Or sometimes people might do the harder thing, and then, they don't want to do any more. So they don't do they don't do the easier one. It's really a tough call, and either way can work. Unless you keep stringing, like what you did really was basically what you're talking about is like one goal: closet cleaning. Okay. For some people, they might have like a lot of little tasks they want to do around the house, and they'll keep doing those things because they really can't write the 30-page report that they have to do, for work. So that's, I mean, you really have to kind of be honest with yourself when it comes to that stuff. What are you putting off? Is this other stuff really important? In your case, the description that you had, I mean, they're both important. It's kind of part of one bigger goal, and you could do the easier one first and ease yourself into it. So, unless you're going to stop when you're finished. That's the only thing. Yeah. So, what's that?
Call from Brian.
I'm gonna, can't turn this off.
Call from Brian Kevin.
I don't know if that's going to work or not, but anyway, I'm sorry. I apologize. I should have taken that phone out of here. Anybody else have any suggestions about getting started? Nope. Questions? No? All right. Okay. Now, one of the things I think that can happen is that procrastinating can become a habit. I don't know if that's true with this group. I don't know that it's really true for me. I mean, certainly I procrastinate a lot, but I don't think that I procrastinate everything. It doesn't become like, it's not like, my identity. But even if it is, you can change it. And for all of us, I think one of the things is you have to set goals that you can reach. And we, Beverly and I just talked about this in terms of like breaking up big tasks so that they're smaller, and that you can actually accomplish it in the during the day. I think this is going to ring again. Excuse me, just 1 second.
Call from Brian Kevin. Did you take this call?
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. Where were we? Oh yeah, breaking up tasks. Okay, so we had talked about that. One of the things is taking a break, and this is always so tricky. You can use a break as a reward for yourself. But one of the things I think most important about taking a break, and it can energize you. When you take a break, it can energize you to come back and be, fresher to finish things up. I think one of the things you have to do is to come up with a time that's a good time to come back and stick to it. So it's just can't say, oh, I'm going to take a break now. No, I'm going to take a break, a 10-minute break. I'm going to take a half-hour break, depending on what you're doing and how much time you need or what you have to get done during that break. But have a time and to schedule to come back. Or, I mean, you could say, for a certain project, I'm going to do this part of it and I'm going to quit at a certain time, and that's it for today. And that's your plan. And you have a plan for the next day for, more of the task or whatever. It's always good to have a time frame because sometimes we work quicker if we're working against a deadline. I'm going to stop this at this time, and like maybe I could get like this much done or whatever. And for some of us, and it does differ for people, but for some people you work quicker, you work better if you have a deadline. So that's something that you can think about. But I don't think open-ended breaks. It's one thing to say, I'm just going to work for a half an hour today or something. But I don't think it's good to say, oh, I'm going to take a break. I'll come back to this later without saying I'm going to come back to it, in half an hour. I'm going to come back to it in an hour, whatever it is. So you should admit that you're procrastinating, but I think it's kind of a mistake to say I'm a procrastinator, because then that's kind of almost like an excuse. Like it's your identity. I'm a procrastinator. Nothing I can do about that, So that's not really where we want to go.
Right.
But you can say I've been procrastinating, but I would say don't say that you're a procrastinator. I don't think that is very helpful. Because you want to be starting to develop new behaviors. Okay. I think when it comes to procrastinating, having a to-do list is a very good idea, because one of the best things that you can do is to set priorities. And we've talked about this before. The Eisenhower boxes that we talked about can be very helpful in this. If you make a to-do list and then stick those things in the right quadrants in an Eisenhower box, you can, it does help to decide, okay, this is where I need to spend my time. Like you want to get all that stuff done, but it does help you, bite off the right chunk first. Okay. And then once you know the task, make your goals clear to yourself. Like, how will you know when you're finished? Okay, so your goals should be clear. They should be manageable, not impossible. I mean, I don't remember the Man Mantra to dream the impossible dream. We all could do that, but that's not such a great way to, go through life. So, manageable goals, clear, very specific. This is how I'll know when I'm finished of this part or this task or this, thing, and a deadline. Because that keeps you a little bit, motivated. You might not make the deadline, and it's not going to be the end of the world, but you try to set a reasonable deadline for, I think I can get this done by lunchtime, or I think I can get this done by Friday, depending on the job, how much you have to, how much you have to expend on that. So that does is helpful. And then I think it's kind of important. Make sure that you have what you need to start. Okay, if you have to assemble like materials because like you're going to fix that table, come hell high water, you need to you need to get the stuff together that you think you're going to need, or you're going to write a report. You have to have all those references you were going to use, and The reason I say that is because sometimes if we're working on something and we have to go find something to do what we need to do, yeah, somehow we wind up, oh, look, I left that bread out. I got to put that away. I have to, I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to do that thing. And you don't get back to what it was that you needed, that you wanted to do. So have what you need, and minimize distractions. Okay. So they're different for everyone, if you're, a young family, the kids can be terribly distracting. I don't know what you can do with them, but you might want to even hire a babysitter, depending on how important the thing is you have to do. You might want to, arrange a play date or hire a babysitter or something so that you can get done what you need to get done. But it could also be your cell phone. How many of us have, the text message comes in and all of a sudden you're down the rabbit hole, with this text chain from 5 of your friends, or you read the text and then you play a game of free cell, like
Right.
I mean, there's so much to do on the phone, or you check your email or whatever. So the thing is that, or you're working on the computer and you take a break to read your email, and it's hard to get back into what you need to do. So, so you have to think about what it is that distracts you. And it's not the same for everybody. I mean, some people could let their email sit there for a year and they wouldn't care. But if the phone is a problem, I read something by one guy who said, he used to turn it off, but it was there. And then finally he turned it off and put it in a drawer in another room so that he could get his block of time to do whatever it was that he had to do, that he had to concentrate on, and he did it without the phone, and he did, and that worked for him. Some people don't want to really be out of touch from the family. If there's somebody needs them or something, they need, they want to have the phone there. But you have to figure out what is your distraction. It might be aromas, like maybe you got to find someplace else to work because either the odors or the aromas are distracting you. They're making you hungry, or they're making you disgusted, or depending on what's going on. So that's but you have to be conscious of, like, this is pulling me away from what I need to do. So how am I going to deal with that? How am I going to deal with these distractions? We talked about deadlines, and again, there are just so many big tasks that can be divided into smaller chunks. And, each time you start one, you probably should set a deadline. It doesn't necessarily going to make it, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the world, but it does kind of give you a target and a focus that, and it's something that you've thought about. So you're talking about like a reasonable amount of time. So that's one thing. Let's see if there's something else. Well, we talked about rewards and what the reward is, small rewards are probably better than, unless you're working on like a month-long project for a job or something, I wouldn't plan like a huge reward, but you might want to think about, if I get this done in time, then I will call my friend that I haven't talked to in a week. Whatever would motivate you. And an accountability partner. We've talked about this before too in this group. Anybody remember what an accountability partner is? Susan? Beverly? No. All right. An
I don't want
accountability.
to deal with that.
What did you say?
I said, I don't want to deal with that accountability.
It's
Oh,
like,
that surprises me, Susan.
it's like an organizing buddy,
Right, a buddy, yeah, it's a buddy. It's somebody. Now, sometimes it helps if you're both trying to work on something, and you're saying, and you're reporting to each other on how you're doing and how you do, where you're going and what you've gotten done. But you could even ask a good friend or a spouse or just to that you report to them like every night, or just to how you're progressing on this, or if you got done the one major thing, that did you get that insurance mess straightened out, like you spent you might have spent the whole day on it, but by gum, at the end of the day, I got it settled. So, but the thing is, you're not going to want to talk to that person and say, well, I really just didn't get around to it today, like, that's very embarrassing. So basically, an accountability partner is somebody who keeps you, from being embarrassed, because you just, like, you got to get it. You're not going to report that you didn't do it. So, and so if you're being honest, if you're an honest person, an accountability partner is a good thing. So, okay. A lot of times I think we feel imposed upon, and a lot of times, especially if it's for work or something, the tasks are coming from other, the jobs that we have to do, the goals that are coming from other people. But I think it's important to kind of to own this thing. I'm choosing to work on this. I'm choosing to do this, so that you take ownership and you feel more invested in something. Now, if it really is being imposed on you from outside, maybe you could do something about that. But for most of the things, I mean, like, sometimes we feel put upon because, I've got to get the car inspected by the end of the month. Well, it's your car. You don't want to get a ticket. So it's like, but I'm choosing to do it on this day. I'm going and I'm taking care of this, for me, because most of the things that we're doing and that we talk about are things that we're really doing for ourselves. So it's, so that helps if you take ownership. I think it does help to power you through. I'm not doing this because anybody else is telling me to do it. I mean, I might not like doing it, but I feel that it's important for whatever reason. And, remind yourself of the reasons, but take ownership. And, I think that it kind of, it can be empowering, I guess. Okay. And then another thing that is helpful is, I had talked about this quite a while ago. I know I talked about it when we were still sitting in the library, doing, working in the children's room with this group, but your future self. You're doing this, I think even instead of thinking about doing it for yourself, I mean, which is not a bad idea, but how will you feel next week when it's done? How will you feel next year, depending on the project or whatever? You're doing it for your future self. So you're not tearing your hair out, 2 weeks from now. All right. So that's helpful to think of, like sometimes, sometimes when you face a pile of dishes at the end of the night and you say, oh, I'll wait till tomorrow. But if you really think like that, your future self who walks down the stairs in the morning, wouldn't it be nice if things were at least like in the dish drainer and, like the dishwasher and, the sink was clear. So you're doing it for your future self. And I find that that's a very handy kind of a construct, the future self. Okay. And then, the idea of like, and I don't know that I would be very good at this myself actually, but they, like a lot of the people who write on this topic talk about your peak times. So if you know that you're better, like between your morning coffee and lunchtime, or you do better, like most of us aren't really at our best right after lunch, but there might be people who are very chipper after their lunch and full of energy instead of like a little sluggish. But whatever your peak time is, look at that list and schedule those harder tasks for that time. Okay. Like give yourself a little boost that way, that, if this is a tough thing to do, you want to do it when you have the most energy, when you're at your best. It might not be what you want to do then, but that it's going to be harder to do it, at another time, like, just before quitting time, or, and for some people it might be first thing in the morning, not until I've really awake. I'm not going to tackle anything that's really too difficult. So that's, and this kind of plays into too, whether you do little easier things first or whether you do the tougher thing first. It really depends on what's your energy level. And if you haven't really thought about it, you might want to kind of monitor yourself for a while. Like when do I get the most done? When do I feel, like the most energetic? When do, and that's the time to, kind of block off a chunk of time for some of these more difficult or less appealing tasks that you have to do, where you have to, really rally to get it done. That might be, helpful. Okay. Okay. And then I forget, I don't remember who kind of brought this up in the things that I've read, but procrastination can affect your interpersonal relationships. Think about it, because if you don't get something done that, you promised to do, or that somebody else expected you to do, and like you're letting people down, and you're disappointing them. And it definitely has, a negative impact on things. So, and especially if you can't get something done for some whatever legitimate, serious reason or something, like let them know as early as you can that you can't get it done. Don't just procrastinate on it, saying, "Oh yeah, I really got to do that." If somebody else is kind of depending on you for something. So, that's something really to think about. And it's something that I really had, usually when we're talking about procrastination, it's, it's more of a personal thing. It's just, between you and yourself. But I think, but very often our procrastination affects other people. And, so that's that. And actually, I guess that can be kind of motivating. You want to keep these people in your life. So, up to. Please jump in if you have any comments. I feel like it's a monologue here. I usually prefer it when it's a discussion.
Pat, as you were talking before about, peak times and future self and doing little tasks to avoid doing the big tasks. So I was thinking about tomorrow morning, because what you said helped me a lot. So I need to call the IRS because they haven't given my mother her refund from the year 2000,
Yeah.
And so what I'm finding is at the end of the day, I don't want to call because I figure the wait times are probably longer, but I was thinking before we got on this meeting that, I'll get this parking sticker from the local municipality, I'll do that first and I'll do that. And then I'll do the IRS. But you know what? That's just going to keep me from that's like a form of procrastination. I wasn't thinking about it in those terms.
Yeah.
So I think now I'm going to get up and just do the hard thing. What is it they call it? Eat the frog? Is that what they?
Yeah, eat the frog first thing in the morning, first thing in the day. Get the worst part done. Yeah. But one of the things about the IRS that I do have to think is I think they've been underfunded, and I think it is hard to get through.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you
I
might
think
want to have
that's
things
true.
that you could have your phone on hold, on speaker, on hold, and have other things that you can do while you're, waiting for them.
I was also thinking that, a reason for procrastination is I'm anticipating that it's going to take 3 hours,
Yeah.
And so that's like your psychological state.
Mhm.
Maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe I'll get lucky,
Right. You'll have to report back next month.
Oh, okay.
We'll be your accountability partner. You have a month to get it done.
Okay. Well, and then, I was thinking about another one too. It's like calling tech support, right? I need to call Apple, and those are always long calls. And
Right.
maybe I could do it and it won't be a long call. So I'll get back to you on that one too.
Yeah, but I really do think that, like being able to put your phone on speaker on hold, like on speaker, and sit there and do, like, read a magazine even, or get some work done that you have to get done, can be a good, like at least you don't feel like you've wasted your whole morning hanging on with the IRS, right? So, but I'd be curious to know how you do with that, how you make out. So, There's another thing about procrastination here that I thought was a lot of what I read, and I maybe have said this before, I don't know today, about writers, that, that writing seems to be, it's very difficult for writers, that procrastination is a real problem for them. I guess if the ideas aren't flowing, you just put something, you've just put it off. But Raymond Chandler, who wrote the mysteries back in the 30s or 40s or whatever, had a philosophy, and it was, you don't have to write or work on whatever you need to work on, but you can't do anything else. So he would have to just sit there. Like, he didn't have to write. There was no pressure to write, but he couldn't do anything else. So I don't know. I've never tried this myself, but that might be a good idea. Oh, I really, you don't have to clean the basement, but you can't do anything else. All of a sudden, I think maybe the basement cleaning might seem very attractive, or whatever else it is that, we have to get done. So, that's another technique which I would never have come up with, but it's something that you might want to think about, So I really don't have too many ideas more than past that. But sometimes we talk about people's particular situations or something that they want help with, or we can make some positive suggestions, or you can tell me how you've overcome procrastination in the past, because it might help some of our our fellow travelers here. So,
Well, I haven't overcome it, but just listening to you, I'm going to make a list, which is a start.
okay.
I know most of my things I put off, it's because they're just so hard.
Yeah.
And then I think, I could do that, another day. And there are other things more important, like,
Right.
I could read. After all, you're entitled to that after you're retired, right?
Right, sure.
You convince yourself
Plus,
of
you
that.
have to read. But you have to read because you do the book.
Right,
Oh,
so I have
the book
responsibility.
chat. Yeah. So you need, so that's really, so it's easy to kind of rationalize, well, I've got to get this book done because, I have to
Right.
do it for the book club, or I have to have ideas for the book group, the book chat.
Yeah.
So I can understand that, but a list, even if you're just picking out one thing for each day, like, this is the one
Right,
thing on
a
this
list of
I'm
things
gonna
that I
do.
want to get done.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you have a list of things, and even if they're not prioritized, like how difficult, but like you just can look at them at night and say, okay, I'm doing this one tomorrow, and if for some reason, if like the weather doesn't comply or whatever, or the air quality is poor, maybe you could pick another one, but get, like, knock one off a day or something,
I will
and
try.
maybe you'll even get two done, who knows, but yeah, it's
It's endless.
yeah, it is. And the thing is, when you keep a list, I haven't really, I like the idea of the Eisenhower boxes. I haven't tried it myself. But
I think I must have missed that class. because
oh, okay.
I don't know what an Eisenhower box is.
Okay. An Eisenhower box, and I probably should, is for 2 boxes on the top, 2 boxes on the bottom. And it's like urgent, not urgent, important, not important. Okay. So this box is urgent and important. All right. This box down here, not urgent, not important. All right. So it kind of prioritizes for you. Like, if you really think about that, this thing is urgent because it's due in 2 days, but it's not really particularly important. It goes in the other, so you really get a like kind of a visual of like where you should be spending your time. Urgent and important. Now, sometimes they're not important, but not urgent moves up to important, urgent, but I mean, like, so you're tackling the urgent and important, and then you're looking at the urgent and, the ones that the box that's just urgent or just important, and probably the ones that are not urgent, not important, don't even have to be done. Even if they're on their list.
You easily put those off.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find, maybe I should send something out on that, because I don't think I actually showed, what that looks like. But I'll do that. And because somebody at the last time we said, thought that had used it, I think, and said it was very effective. Somebody at the last meeting. But anyway, those, it's just a way of basically, you're still writing a list of things, but you're putting them in, different categories. I probably would find it easier, like writing the list and then taking the items and putting them in the right box. You could probably do that like on a Sunday for the rest of the week or something,
Right.
but yeah, it's an interesting concept. I don't know if it originated with Eisenhower or if Eisenhower just, latched onto this and said, this is a great idea, and it became, kind of popular or whatever.
Well, the question also became, well, how do you classify urgent? Because like my IRS call involves a fair amount of money, but it's not urgent. It's very,
Okay, so that you just answered your question. It's important, but it's not urgent.
that's why I don't do it.
No, you don't, that's not true. You don't do it because you don't want to hang on the phone for 3 hours.
Yes. So then how does the Eisenhower box help that?
Well, it does. I mean, because the thing is, if for example, you really didn't have anything for that, that day, or you've crossed off the things that are important and urgent, okay. And now you've got something that's important but not urgent. That's probably where the box you need to go to next.
Oh, okay.
Okay, or maybe there might be some urgent things which really should be taken care of, even if they're not life-threatening, So, I mean, it's really up for you. The thing is, the things that you really have to look at first are the urgent and important in that box. After that, whether it's the urgent or whether it's the important is, up to you. You have to look at those items. And the not urgent, not important, they're the ones that are going to sit there for a while.
Or really, maybe they shouldn't even be on the list. That's what happens to me sometimes. I have these things.
Uh-huh.
I keep a box around and I put all my mail in there, right?
Yeah.
And then if I don't look at it for a month, I look at it after the fact and I say, why was this even on my list? This isn't, this was a nice to do, but it's,
Uh-huh.
it has to do a lot of time with all these donation letters or
Yeah.
requests. It seems like that's stepped up recently.
Mhm.
And I had made a decision, and this was not procrastination, but I'd made a decision that at the end of the year, I will just write a few checks and I'll have less paperwork, okay?
Right. Mhm.
But this stuff keeps coming in and I don't know what to do with it. And I think,
Okay.
oh, maybe I should do that. Like it shouldn't even, it goes in that last box. I shouldn't even have it on my list, but I have to get out of the habit of putting it on the list. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
well, yeah, first of all, some of the, we've talked about mail before here. And one of the things I think is the most important thing about mail is to do something with it right away. Okay, so for me, it's like, the stuff that goes in recycling, the stuff that goes in shredding, and the stuff that I have to do something with. And actually 4 piles if you want to add filing, because some stuff can just get filed. Other stuff, you have to pay that bill, or you have to respond to that person, or you have to do something. So that stuff goes in my inbox. Because don't ask me, that the inbox is a little towering, but it's not exactly where I would like it to be. But it is good to take care of that recycling and the shredding right away. So that's one way to handle some of this stuff. And something about donations, because I get hit up a lot too. And I've started to try to keep track of who I gave what to. And you could even set up, a budget for the year. Like I will allow, not that you have to make the payment in one payment, but these people will get $100. These people might get $10. Whatever you feel is appropriate, and then just keep track of it. And if you've done it, if you've hit your goal for the for 2023, then you just shred it until 2024. You don't have to respond to all those solicitations. So I mean that's one way to kind of take care of it.
Yeah, it's a good way, because what's happening now is I'm getting, like, if you give something, then you get even more
Oh
solicitations.
I get that in my email.
You
Yeah.
just have to pick the ones you want to support, I think.
Yeah,
Then I don't remember. I like the idea of writing. I have to start writing it down because I don't remember who I gave what to.
right. Yeah, that happens. I've had the same experience, but if you keep
You
it,
don't write checks, you don't use checks. I still write checks.
I do a lot of that online.
Yeah,
So you
so
have
do
to-
I. So
I
it's
mean, I
hard.
could go back, I could go to my charge bill and look at all the, but I think it's, if you keep a notebook, you make a donation, you write it in there. Then and if you've set a date, if you've set an amount for yourself for the year, like these people are getting, maybe $200, or these people are getting $5 or, whatever. Once you've hit that, I mean, you might not want, like I said, you might not want to do it in one dose, but if you give it in separate, separate donations, 50 here and 50 there, now, okay, we're done. They got their 100 for the year. So, I mean, because sometimes I think you can surprise yourself by how much you've actually, paid out.
Yep, that happened to me last year.
Yeah,
But I think that some of that mail stuff falls in the category too of doing busy stuff to avoid the bigger things,
well, yes and no. I mean, I think handling it right away is actually probably much more effective than plowing through the same, like churning through like a box of stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's gone. It's like it's done, it's handled, it's taken care of. You're not looking at the same piece of paper, 4 times or anything, I mean, the thing is, I'm not saying that when you bring the mail and you immediately have to sit down and write a check or something, but that could go in its place to be handled. Like a lot of people would suggest having like an hour like at your desk every day where you're handling whatever's in that pile and anything that, like any correspondence or birthday cards or whatever that you have to do. I'm not that disciplined really, but I do have my inbox, so I know where this stuff is when I want to, tackle it. But the other stuff is gone. The stuff that I've decided, I'm not dealing with, right? Not, I'm not responding to that solicitation, or I don't shop at that store. I'm not going to hit this store before the sale is over or whatever. That all just goes out. Yeah, but I mean, I think it's, I just think that this is something that really hits home, because it's so easy to do. It's like, you're not saying I'm not doing it. I don't want, and the thing is, there might be something, we didn't discuss this. There might be some things where you just say, you know what, this really isn't important. I'm just crossing this off the list. Why is it even on here? So that, you have a better awareness if you're trying to, prioritize things and really, knock things off. Like, if this is something that you keep bumping down to the bottom of your list week after week after week, you have to say to yourself, is this something I really have to do at all? So,
What do you think about, well, what's happening to me now is I have a very long list. Okay. It's just accumulating from not, remember, you're talking 3 months of not doing a lot.
yeah,
So I have this feeling like I ought to have 2 lists, like one of, well, almost like a rough Eisenhower box. I mean, you just mentioned, Pat, don't put more than 4 things in a box.
well, I just pulled
Yeah,
that
but
out.
as a guideline,
Yeah.
so it would be counterproductive for me to put 10 items in this box, but that's what I'm looking at. Like, I almost feel like I need one list for the stuff I know is more important, and some just for these quick details that are on my brain,
Yeah.
like call this person, call that person, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah,
and
but the thing is, that's the kind of thing though. Now, if you've spent a half an hour on your important thing, and that's the chunk that you allowed, because like if you schedule like 4 hours, you're going to burn out maybe before you can get 4 hours in. But if you've scheduled, let's say, an hour on something and you've spent your hour, that's the time that maybe you could go to the list and pick a piddly thing and knock it off. Or if you have 10 minutes before you have to go out someplace, to go to that doctor's appointment or whatever, anything on that list I could get done in 10 minutes, because sometimes there are things Sometimes not, but sometimes there are, where it's just like, like you said, call so-and-so. It might be just to let them know that, yeah, tomorrow's gonna be good for me or something, like you might not need there might be a few things on there that clean out the silverware drawer or something along that line, something that you said, you looked at it and said, oh, I gotta do this, and you wrote it down. Maybe it's something you could do.
I can't believe you just mentioned the silverware drawer because I did that last week. I did it last week because it was awful. And now every time I go to it, I'm saying to myself, I'd like the rest of my drawers to look like this.
Okay, but I also want you to go to that drawer and say, aren't I terrific? I cleaned out that drawer. It looks great. Just pat yourself on the shoulder every once in a while.
I did not do that.
But anyway, so yeah, so see, it was not only rewarding, but it was motivating to
Yeah.
clean your silverware drawer. And I bet it didn't take a heck of a lot of time either.
No.
So.
And it was a really messy drawer. It almost looked like a desk drawer. It had so many pens in it.
It doesn't belong in the silverware drawer.
Yeah.
So what's everybody going to do? What's their first thing for tomorrow morning?
The IRS. That's
Oh, yeah, okay, you've got yours. I have a 17-month-old who's, or an 18-month-old, whatever she is, being delivered at 8 o'clock or 8:15 in the morning.
Oh,
And I'll have her till 5 o'clock. So forget it. I'll get nothing done tomorrow.
Well, I think Susan, you also inspired me. I haven't made a good list in recent times, and I think it would really help, Like I have sort of a list, but not everything's on there. It needs to get on there just so I have some mental peace.
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah. Well, you know why? Because if you get it onto paper, it's out of your head.
Yes.
Sometimes we churn these things around, we churn and we churn and we churn. Oh, I can't forget that. I can't forget that. I can't forget. Well, if it was on a piece of paper where you can, as long as you look at the piece of paper.
I think it's very satisfying to make a list.
Yeah.
You feel like you,
But there are people who make lists and then don't look at them. So that doesn't work.
right.
either.
Well, that's
But
another-
I do think that if you're trying to hold all this stuff in your head, something's going to, splash out. So I think that it's, I think putting it on paper is a great idea. And sometimes it can look overwhelming. But like I said, you pick out what you have time for that day, or what fits into the schedule, and you're knocking some of these things off. As long as you can do some of the high priority tasks, but it is also very satisfying to knock off, like 2 of these little, nitpicky things that have been bothering you.
And there's nothing more satisfying than crossing stuff off that list.
Well, some people cross things off. Some people, if they've done something during the day, they write it down so they can, because they've already done it, but they cross it so they can cross it off and say, and show themselves that they got something done here,
Sounds good. I'll have to do that more often.
So, well, I mean, I don't know that I think we probably flogged this horse enough, but next month, we're not going to have a meeting. We're going to have one in August. We're not going to have one in July. And Z had suggested that the one for August would be kind of like, gearing up for fall. I know that for most of us, even those of us who are not in school and don't have kids in school anymore or anything like that, September is always like another New Year's, where it's kind of like, you've gotten through the summer and now you're thinking about, different things and gearing up. I mean, it's too soon really to think about the holidays, but a lot of the changes with the fall. So she suggested something about, just kind of getting, the changes that fall brings and resolution. My thought was resolutions for the upcoming, social season or school's year or whatever, it is for you. There's usually a lot more, many more activities, more groups meeting and, all that stuff. So, I said, fine, that would, is Z's idea, but it works for me. So that's what we're going to be doing. I think, Mary, do you remember the date?
August 10th. It's gonna be August 10th,
August
and I
10th,
want to
okay.
give credit to one of our members because they asked for that. It wasn't me. I was just a a solution or a receptacle for the
Oh.
good ideas.
Okay, great. Okay, so.
I'm passing it
that's what
along.
we do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, and did anybody have suggestions? Like if anything occurs to you, or if you can think of something now for future, sessions, I'm open. And I kind of like to have a stash of ideas. Because sometimes, I mean, we've covered a lot of territory in this group, and I know we keep circling back around a lot of things,
I just wanted to ask you, what was the Pomodoro technique?
Oh, okay.
20
That's,
minutes.
the Pomodoro, is it the tomato timer? You've seen them, it looks like a red tomato, and if you turn the top, you can turn to 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. And this fellow a student in, and I forget his name, who was studying in Italy, used the Pomodoro to study. He would study or do schoolwork or whatever for 25 minutes and then give himself 5 minutes off. Okay, so that's like what they call a Pomodoro, the 25 working, 5 off. It doesn't have to be that. I mean, you could set yourself like, I'm going to work an hour on this report, or I'm going to work an hour on this closet, or and then I'm going to take a 15-minute break or something. But it's just it's more, I mean, strictly speaking, a Pomodoro is 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. But you could actually use that kind of technique to get through your day, saying, okay, I'll check email for 5 minutes, and then I'll do 25 minutes, or I'll do 20 minutes of cleaning or something. It's just an idea of keeping yourself, giving yourself breaks. Okay, so it's allowing breaks and not like I'm going to study for 4 hours straight. But it's also keeping yourself on track in a way.
Did you ever, you had talked about time blocking versus time management?
Time blocking and time,
Well, we had talked about time blocking and
Yeah.
with an eye on the finished tasks. I was wondering whether you tried it.
not really, although the thing is the timing, it's not necessarily finishing a whole task. I mean, like you could do that. In fact, actually, even in terms of procrastination, it may help because it's a scheduling technique. So what you're doing is you're saying, I am going to, this is what I'm going to accomplish in this time block. Okay, whatever the time block you've allowed. And it doesn't have to be, it can be whatever you desire. It can be, an hour or half an hour or 2 hours or whatever. And you have a goal and a time frame. And you try to be realistic about what you actually can get done in that time. As opposed to, that's time boxing. Time blocking is just what I always did, would be like, I'm going to spend, from 9 to 10 every day on paperwork or something. You put it on your schedule and that's what's going to do, but you don't have any particular goals, for that particular time. Just the area really that you're going to be working in. This is my time to work on Friends of the Presswood Library business. So this is my time to contact a friend on the telephone or something. That's time blocking, but time boxing is actually being more specific about what you're going to do and what you're going to accomplish in that, what you hope to accomplish in that amount of time. So you have a goal.
I think that could be really helpful with procrastination.
Yeah. Well, anything, I think, like even saying that if you're going to take a break, what time you're going to take a break, what time you're coming back, but yeah, I think that it could be very beneficial. Mostly because it's emphasizing what you hope to accomplish in the time.
Yeah, that would be better than having an open list necessarily, that,
The idea with an open list is more like just to collect those thoughts. In my own opinion,
yeah,
it's like so that it's not in your head. And you're not trying to remember, I'm gonna remember this, I'm gonna remember that, I'm gonna remember everything. It's on paper. And then when you're going to, when you have 5 minutes, is there anything on there you can do? Or if you have, or if it's a, or if you're trying to set up your schedule for the week, look at the list and say, oh, what important stuff should I be concentrating on?
so
But
maybe we have to rename it, so it's not a to-do list. It's a collection. No, seriously, because I look at it and I say, oh my God, I'll never do all of this. But if you think of it, if we reframe it, right, we call it something else, like
yeah,
your
well, I know.
list.
Gretchen Rubin talks about, and not that it's going to take the place of a to-do list, but a to-done list, or to-do list, rather, to-do list. So when you've actually accomplished something, writing it down so that you realize all that you have accomplished.
What does she call it?
A to-do, like ta-da!
Oh,
It's a to-do list instead of a to-do list.
all right.
So you could have a to-do list.
Okay. But I think that point psychologically of having an open list just to collect thoughts, that's
Yeah.
a whole different thing in my head than having this to-do list that looks like 3 pages,
Well, the thing is, these are things you do hope to accomplish,
right.
but and the thing is, you just pick them out, like either the night before, what you kind of hope to get done the next day, or like I said, sometimes you can look down the list and say, like all of a sudden, somebody cancels on you, and you say, and you haven't planned something, but you might want to say, oh yeah, like that'll take me 20 minutes, I could get that done.
Yeah, and I think it's important to plan time just for yourself too. I think that's a mistake that I've been making, right? So I have this day and I say, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to do stuff on my list, but then I don't give myself anything fun on my list.
No, you gotta, yeah, a list. In fact, I would say that it's, a to-do list or a list of things that, it should include, like reading or going to a movie or, whatever, seeing your favorite, Netflix show or something. I mean, it's, yeah, there should be some things on there that you enjoy doing. Even if it's just listening to music or,
That's a really good point, because my lists don't have anything that's fun on them.
yeah.
Mhm.
You should have seen the program last night, that the library reader, the writer, no, forget what they called it, but this fellow wrote a book on fun, the fun habit. And
Really?
it was a very interesting, actually, you could probably, Mary, you can get that, right? You can see those.
Yeah, I will look up the name again. It was one of the virtual author talk series.
That's
So
the-
yeah,
that's the
I'll
title,
put
it's
it
like
in
a
the
virtual-
chat for you.
Yeah, and the book
Yeah,
was
that's a really
the book was-
successful
Yeah.
series of Zoom events. Yeah, I'll put the fun habit, I'll put it in.
I haven't been hearing about those. I knew about one because I wanted to go, but I never know where to go to find out about these big talks.
It's on the library website,
Yeah, it's on the library website.
ipl.org.
They're sponsored by the Foundation for the Yonkers Public Library also.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've been going on for about a year now.
Yeah, virtual author talks, right? That's
Right,
what you're talking about.
Oh, that's why.
That's what you're looking for, virtual author talks.
I haven't known where to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like a Zoom meeting, and the person talks about their book, the ideas in the book, and I find them interesting.
So is this fun habit recorded or not recorded?
It is recorded, but you have to sign up ahead of time. to get the recordings, but then there's a website. I'll send it to Dr. Pat and she can add that in with the notes that she sends out. Yes,
Mike
Dr. Pat?
Rucker. Okay.
That would be great. Thank you, Z.
Oops. Uh-oh.
So I
Uh-oh.
urge people, even if you can't make the author talk, like they have it sometimes at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, like it shifts the times, even in the days of the week shifts. So if you can't make it, sign up anyway. And then the day after they say, they send you the link of the replay.
Great. Thank you, Z. I didn't know that.
Oops.
Yeah, I think the fun habit, I think his name was Rucker.
Yeah,
Rucker.
yeah, it's got a long subtitle too, but I'm just putting it all in there, but change your life. Yeah, Mike Rucker, yeah. And
I am sorry I missed that one.
We all need more fun in our lives.
Yes.
well,
Oh, there it is in the chat already.
yeah. Well, Bev, do you come to the library often?
I'm not going anywhere right now.
Oh,
Well, with the weather, yeah, with the,
okay, I'm trying to see. Okay. The catalog is so slow in my app. Okay, yeah, it's available through Westchester Library System. If you wanted to borrow the book, but
Uh-huh.
let me see if it's available. I wonder if it's available in Libby. Do you do any ebooks, Beverly?
No, but I've been able to get to the Ardsley Library, so I can
Oh,
add
okay,
that way.
okay. Yeah, actually, if you like to do audiobooks, they have his the Fun Habit in audiobook on Libby. Like if you do a lot of driving around or you like to multitask and you like to listen to things while you paint or clean. Yeah, they have the audiobook available on Libby right now. You might have to, I'm looking to see if there's people using it right now. Yeah, there might be a little bit of a wait list. But I've been enjoying audiobooks lately too, so yeah. Oh, yeah, and Z just got the book about Provence. It's a beautiful book. That's where I saw it, the author talks.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so climb all over that YPL website and see
Okay.
what's available. Investigate all those little clicks and corners.
Yeah,
See
I'll
what there
send that
is.
poster that Mario, our graphic artist, makes. Like he does 3 at a time. So Dr. Pat will send that, and then
Mhm.
I'll go in my email, and then they have this convoluted way of going and looking at the past author talks. So
Mhm.
I will give you that link too.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you
perfect.
very much. Yeah. One of
Thank you.
these days I'll get out and about again, and then I'll be
Yeah.
at the library.
Yeah. I feel bad about your knee and your ankle and all that.
Right.
Well, listen, at least it's improving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have surgery for the meniscus?
I'm trying to avoid it.
Okay, because I had it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but I forget, I can't remember now how long I was laid up with it,
All right. Well, I'm
The surgery
trying.
itself was very quick.
Yeah. I'm trying all kinds of other things now to avoid it.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yep.
Another thing to report in 2 months, I'll know a lot more.
Yeah, and it's not even good. We're not even going to get together next month. It's going to be 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this was a very timely, wonderful topic
Mhm.
and much appreciated, especially,
Okay.
because that's all, listen, I've had a reason to procrastinate.
Mhm.
That doesn't change anything about the fact that I've done it big time,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say, procrastination, everybody procrastinates at some time. I don't know anybody who's is immune. Some of us are worse than others, but nobody's immune.